Greetings, what's going on? It's Mike's from livemyassoff.com, and I'm not completely living my ass off today. Mainly because it is overcast outside. Now, many of you are like, Mike, you live in San Diego, they have the perfect weather. And I would submit to you that the reason you say that is because you've never been here in June. And you've probably never been here in May and lived by the coast. Now, again, what I'm going to describe to you is absolutely a quality problem. It's not like I am homeless in the middle of a war zone. Southern California is indeed nice in various spots, and it's also disgusting in areas, as is every place pretty much I've been to in the world. The various sort of areas of San Diego, like when you say San Diego, right, it's like, yes, it's this massive city. And there's like, I think greater San Diego, it's got like 1.6 million people living in it. And there are great areas. There are massively affluent areas, not the least of which is Rancho Santa Fe, if you've ever heard of that. Huge mansions there. And there are also huge mansions in Chula Vista. There's less of them. And then there are mansions here in Coronado, and there are small houses in Coronado. Right across the bridge, it's much better than it used to be. But basically, once you cross the bridge and you end up in San Diego, right underneath the bridge is an area called Barrio Logan, which arguably is, you know, gross. Or was, actually. Right now, it's pretty decent, and I would submit it's because the real estate was so cheap. That people were smart enough to say, hey, look, we should really fix this place up. It's not going to cost us a lot. It'll increase the quality of the neighborhood. People will, you know, live here, and there will be less crime, whatever, right? I'm not a real estate developer. I don't know what motivates people to buy in undervalued areas. But what does happen in in San Diego area is what we refer to as May gray and June gloom. And that simply means that at the coast there is a marine layer that lingers longer in the morning than most of anyone would like. Based on our expectation that there should be sun from sunrise till sundown, and it should be about 70% humidity. It should be 75 degrees at the coast, 80 degrees inland. With winds between 6 and 12 miles an hour, with late night, early morning low clouds followed by patches of sun. That is the fantasy that everyone thinks exists in San Diego. There are many days when it's like that, absolutely. But I can tell you that I really feel bad for the people that don't Google weather in San Diego and make this reservation to stay certainly in Coronado, which is right on the water, right underneath the gloom that occurs, or La Jolla, and they're like, man, I got a smoking deal in this hotel in June. Right, that's because unfortunately it's going to be cloudy until about, well, shoot, right now it's 3 p.m. But for the most part, you could argue it burns off usually by 11 in the morning. And again, this is a quality problem. This is not, you know, horrible. But for me, I believe that I suffer from some degree of seasonal affective disorder. And I always think it's ironic that seasonal affective disorder is abbreviated SAD, S-A-D. Brilliant doctors. And so while the lack of photons gets me in a lesser than stellar mood, it also cools it down, and I don't like that. I like hot, humid, and lots of sun, and that, you could argue, is not normal. Many people in the United States, I hear them say, oh my God, it's so hot and humid right now, and I'm like, and that's a bad, you know, but they dislike it. The majority of the people, I would submit. Now, there are people that love living in Florida. Miriam, for example, the woman who owns the big house, this house as well. She grew up in Florida, and she, like me, loves warm and hot and, you know, humid. Now, I mean, excessive anything really is sometimes uncomfortable, but I've been in Phoenix when it's 100 or 105, and I'm okay with it, unless, of course, someone has a gun to my head that says, wear this snowsuit, which is rare. So anyway, I just wanted to check in here from beautiful San Diego and let you know that, like I've heard a lot of vloggers talk about, and I'm by no means a vlogger, I'm just a guy that does videos because I like to wax philosophically, traditionally, about how grateful I am. And it's a nice sort of way of journaling, quite frankly, and then go back to my videos like I did in January or July or June or whatever, certainly when I'm here, but also when I've been back home, where I grew up in Hingham, Massachusetts. So it's a kind of it's kind of a nice way to sort of reflect back on like where I was. Have I made any progress? Am I still crazy? Are there things I need to work on or whatever? But again, like I said, I've heard a lot of vloggers. They get asked, right? These travel guys, they get asked, or not necessarily travel guys, but guys traditionally, at least the ones that I follow, who live in other countries, who profess about how much cheaper it is than living in the United States. Yeah, I agree. For the most part, to some areas, unless you're living in downtown Singapore or Paris or Barcelona, for that matter, depending upon where you live. Much like people are like, oh my God, San Diego's so expensive. Well, dude, I mean, if you live in, National City or San Isidro, it's not actually that expensive. If you live in Coronado or La Jolla or Del Mar or Solana Beach, yeah, it is expensive when you live near the water. But, technically San Diego extends way into East County, and, you can find a really good deal on a house in La Mesa. I know, because I bought one 25 years ago. Or 20 years ago, actually. 20 years ago now, huh? I sold it 4 years ago, something like that. Anyway, regardless, what I was getting to is that you go somewhere and you live there for a while. And here's what would be really cool, is if you could somehow, and maybe you can, Google worst weather month in this location. Because it's really only like hanging out with your buddies and having coffee where you get them to say, oh, yeah, it's totally rainy season. That's why you got a good deal on that. It's like, where can I Google that, man? So if anyone was like, oh, man, I'm going to come out to San Diego and I'm going to live there. I'm going to love it. Okay, well, come out in June. And if you're dead set on living at the beach, then get yourself a house on the beach in June. And pay more than you want to for it. And if after that month you still are like, oh, this is the best place ever, then yeah, great. But I can tell you that actually some years are worse than others, right? So we have like the El Nino, La Nina cyclic thing. And I don't know whether it's the male or the female version of that this year, this season really, meaning from last fall to the coming fall. But I can tell you that it has been more overcast than I remember. It has certainly been infinitely more overcast than when I first moved to Coronado. Because the first year I moved here, I thought, okay, the fall won't be so bad. This is the spring. And then the first summer that came, I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. Like May, gray, June gloom. It doesn't exist. What lottery did I win? And it comes and goes. And so this year it's a little worse. So because of that, my mood is imperfect. So I just wanted to share that. And just say that if you're going to move somewhere, and I'm saying this kind of like in the mirror, so I take my own advice, if you can find someone who's been in a place for at least 12 to 13 months and ask them, what was the worst month, and of course by worst, then you define what that means for you. For me, it means that it's cold and cloudy. And I really don't care how much a place costs. That's not relevant. Is the weather something I want? Because environment is like really important to me. And the next thing past weather is there a relatively safe area? Are the people around me courteous? And do they say hello to you when you walk down the street? That's kind of neat. It's a woman who remodeled the house next door who just moved in. I just saw her, and and she immediately looked up, and she didn't like look up and go like look away. She immediately looked up and smiled and said, "How are you?" And it doesn't shock you. I responded, "I'm amazing." That's because I am. And so I was coming in to do some things in the little attic storage area there, so I didn't have a chance to talk with her some more. But I feel quite confident actually that the people who live around me are very comfortable saying hello. My experience after living here 4 years is that the people in Coronado are comfortable in their own skin for the most part, at least the interactions I've had, and therefore my neighborhood is a place where I like to live. So 4 years later, you don't have to put a gun to my head to continue to pay rent to stay here. So anyway, just a little bit of a, I don't even know what day it is. Is it Wednesday? Morning? Tuesday? Anyway, happy day that ends in Y all over your body, and it's Mike's from LiveMyAssOff.com saying I hope you're living the dream, because if you're not living the dream, you're doing it wrong, and maybe you need some more photons.